Gotcha.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Monster Hunter World Iceborne video. This is Thegameconomist, and it is time for me to update the list of tips for grinding in the Guiding Lands. A recent update came with the volcanic region in the Guiding Lands. We also got some balance changes to the Guiding Lands. For example, you can get from level 6 to level 7 much more easily. In the past, it was horrifyingly grindy. Also, you can lock your regions now. So you can get your volcanic region to level 7, and then you can go join your friend in his, let's say, rotten region. And because your regions are locked, they won't actually change while you're grinding with your friend. This is a terrific change, because since you can't have all of the regions at level 7 at the same time, you're kind of going to have a friend to go, he's got his regions, you've got yours, and you just trade, right? That's the idea. You trade so that you can cover each other's material needs. So being able to lock your region and join him, thanks Capcom, it was a great idea, but probably should have been launched that way. Speaking of friends, if you don't have any, or they don't play enough Guiding Lands, be sure to check out our Discord server where we have a Guiding Lands channel. This is where you can go and tell people, hey, I have level 7 volcanic region, come get your tempered Reijang parts. And then they can go, well, I have level 7 rotten region, come get your tempered Brute Tigrix parts. So you can kind of find people who have the regions you don't have, meet up with them, share session IDs with them, do a little trade. So if you're having trouble finding people using the SOS system, consider joining the Discord server. There is a link in the description of the video. We have 22,000 people in there, okay? Now we're ready to move on to the tips for grinding in the Guiding Lands. These tips, the first couple of them are going to be repeats from the first video, but don't worry, we're going to blow right through those and get to the new ones. If you find a tip in here that you'd never heard before and it actually helps you, consider leaving a like or sharing the video. And if you see a tip that hasn't been mentioned, feel free to share it in the comment section. Let's get started. Tip number 1, fortify, bring it. When fortified procs, you become much more powerful, you deal a lot more damage, you have a lot more defense, it can proc twice, you can even proc it early if you feel like, and it's just really nice to have in the Guiding Lands because you're going to be there for a prolonged time. After it's procced, it's going to last for like 45 minutes, and there's no limit to the number of times you can die in the Guiding Lands, so you can just keep fortify running all the time. It's basically the best skill for damage in the Guiding Lands, in my opinion. Tip number 2, you're going to grab the Geologist decoration. This is a small decoration, and you're going to pop that mother fricker right into your armor set. That's because when you're attacking monsters in the Guiding Lands and they drop the little collectible materials, what happens with the Geologist skill active is you pick up the material once, and it's still there. You can actually gather it twice, so you can pick up the same material twice. This doubles the rewards that you get in the Guiding Lands. I suspect it's a bug. It's a really, really nice thing to have if you're going to be farming for parts. So be sure to, it's just a small decoration slot, guys. If you can't fit that into your build, what the frick is wrong with your build? Tip number 3 is all about leveling up quickly in the Guiding Lands. So there were 2, I don't want to call them exploits, maybe clever use of game mechanics is a better description. You could have a multiplayer session where you get the monster down to capturable health. The host kicks 3 players, those 3 players capture the monster, and then they rejoin the host, and he just keeps kicking them over and over again, and you keep recapturing the monster, right? The problem with that method is you have to find a host who's willing to sit around and pick his nose, right? Because he's not doing anything. Now, there's another method where the host doesn't have to pick his nose and do nothing but kick you. This is where you create a loadout of traps, and you just capture a monster over and over and over again. Like, you don't actually capture them, you just stick them in the traps. Go back to camp when you're out of traps. Pick up more traps, come back and do it again. Because every time you trap a monster, you get a bunch of points for doing this, and you can have everybody doing it. So all 4 players, you just spam traps on the monster. This is a very fast way to level up in the Guiding Lands if you want to do that. If you're looking to do something like that, that would be a great case for popping into the Discord server and being like, I'm going to level up the volcanic region to level 7 tonight. Do 3 of you want to do the trap spam with me? Because it works. It's very effective. Okay, so that's for leveling up quickly in the Guiding Lands if you don't care so much about farming for the monster's parts. Tip number 4 is something I didn't know about the Guiding Lands. This one is going to be about obtaining more of a material after you've unlocked it for the first time. So when you go to the Elder Melder allows you to convert some of your Guiding Lands parts into a different Guiding Lands part. So this is really convenient if you ran out of Guiding Lands parts of one particular monster, but you have like a million parts from a different monster, or the monsters that you need for that conversion. Another thing about the Elder Melder, as you level up a region in the Guiding Lands, you tend to run into tempered versions of the monsters. And so the tempered versions and the normal versions have different parts. But fear not, the Elder Melder can actually take the tempered parts and make them non-tempered, okay? So this, let's say you need regular Odogaron, but your region is leveled up, so you're more likely to run into tempered Odogaron. Just fight tempered Odogaron, you're fine. Collect all the tempered Odogaron parts, go to the Elder Melder, and turn them into non-tempered parts. Tip number 5. Let's say you want to fight a tempered Rejang in the volcanic region, and your volcanic region is at level 7, but he's not showing up. How do you get him to show up faster? Well, again, assuming you can't find somebody who's simply posting tempered Rejang, which is always convenient, assuming you can't find anyone who's doing that, you can force him to show up in the single player, solo, by jumping between two maps as if you were doing an expedition. So I would pick the Coral Highlands and the Rotten Vale. I've heard they load slightly faster, and you just keep jumping between those maps. Every time you jump, check the Guiding Lands. When you see Rejang, even if he doesn't show up as tempered, because that's kind of how it works. He doesn't necessarily show up as tempered. When he shows up, go ahead and head out to the Guiding Lands, and hopefully he's shown up in the volcanic region. If he did, he's going to be tempered. So that is the trick for forcing a monster to show up. The monsters, they show up on RNG, right? There's a chance a monster shows up in the map. Usually you won't get the monster that you want, so that is just a trick for forcing them to rotate. It's a tempered Rejang, everyone. Oh, snap. We got a tempered Rejang. The next tip is going to be a correction of my previous video. The correction is because Capcom actually made an update that changed the game. In the previous video, I said, let's say you're fighting a monster from the Wildspire Waste, and you only want to level up the Wildspire Waste, but that monster walks off into the Ancient Forest. My previous tip was that you need to use Dung Paws to force that monster back into the Wildspire Waste. That was because in the past, if that monster wandered into the Ancient Forest, you would actually gain points for the Ancient Forest while fighting them there. Capcom has since then changed the rules so that if you're fighting a monster from the Wildspire Waste, you only get points for the Wildspire Waste. They basically made it easier. That's an improvement. So it's kind of like telling you don't follow that previous tip if you happen to have watched that video. Here's a quick tip on which monsters give the most experience for leveling up an area in the Guiding Lands in case you don't want to use either of those two previous methods we talked about, one where the host kicks you repeatedly, the other one where you spam traps. Maybe you're not a big fan of that. Well, if you want to do it the good old-fashioned way and just fight monsters, it turns out monsters who are exclusive to that region, for example, Lavasiath in the volcanic region, he's exclusive to the volcanic region, he's actually going to give you more points. You level up faster, essentially, for defeating Lavasiath. So some monsters roam, like Bonboro. Bonboro doesn't give you as many points as Lavasiath if you're trying to level up that volcanic region. Here's a new tip that I just recently learned. So the wish list. The wish list has always been in Monster Hunter World. I never really used it because I don't know, maybe it's because I always kind of knew where the parts were going to come from. So if I needed to make a hammer and I needed Odogaron parts, I would just go play an Odogaron investigation. Now there's this new kind of like confusing aspect to the game where you don't know if the part you need is coming from Odogaron in the Guiding Lands or just regular Odogaron rewards, right? It's gotten confusing. What you can do, take the piece of armor or the weapon that you want to craft, add it to your wish list, okay? So you can see the option to add it to your wish list. Then you can go into your menu, right? You open up your menu, go down to wish list, and it'll actually explain which monster is going to give you that part and from where. Another useful tip is that the Hunter's Notes actually contains a lot of information about the Guiding Lands. Go ahead and pop that sucker open. Notice there's a option at the bottom of the page for Guiding Lands. When you open that up, there's a bunch of tabs. Those tabs are the different regions of the Guiding Lands. When you scroll between them, you'll notice that it kind of gives you a page to scroll through of different monsters. And depending on how far you've leveled up that region, you can kind of figure out which monsters show up, which tempered monsters show up, even like how likely they are to show up, and what materials they drop. Now, of course, the only problems with the Hunter's Notes is it won't show you a monster if you've never leveled up that region, in which case you probably still use the internet at that point. And that's the end of my tips list. Did you learn something new? Or did you already know it all because you're a big smarty pants? Let me know in the comment section. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.